Yo people, welcome back to another video. Now you're probably thinking, what is that thumbnail? Well, it's the start of a potential route WWE can go down regarding a serious Latin American faction which can be built on the foundations of the Judgment Day. So as you know, we got this Intercontinental Championship feud where Braun Breaker will face Penta at Wrestlemania 41, and I think they'll add Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio to the match as they teased on Monday Night Raw, setting up a fatal four-way, and I'll give you my prediction for this match. I believe that Dominic Mysterio will cost Finn a clear chance of winning the match as the Judgment Day officially gets rid of Finn Balor from the group. I think that as Finn has the chance to win the match, Dominic will stop him, which will cause some tension amongst them as people will think Dominic wants to win for himself. He then fights Finn, hits his finisher on Finn, but then he lets Penta pin Finn Balor, becoming the new Intercontinental Champion as the Judgment Day gain their new member that Dominic Mysterio in particular has been teasing for weeks. In my opinion, Finn Balor unfortunately just hasn't been built good enough to carry a group and be the main event of the group, considering that's what his role is meant to be. He's eating pins so much that people are trolling him online, calling him Pin Balor. I just think that his momentum has died and it's time to end this stable partnership. He's also got that new theme song, which is another Death Rebel piece of audible manure, which signals a single run in the future for Finn Balor, and good luck to him because he deserves something, but unfortunately just not with the Judgment Day anymore. Adding a new member into the Judgment Day, which in this case would be Penta, injects some new life into this group as well. Penta is currently one of the most liked people right now, and turning him heel does a massive favor for him because it immediately stops the Rey Mysterio comparisons that every luchador faces when they enter the company. They tried to do this heel turn thing with Santos Escobar a few years ago, and it was unfortunately done very prematurely, and it led to nothing but a burial for Santos Escobar. So it looks like they're trying the same formula again, but with Penta, if they do go with this. Now, the reason I think this will work, unlike with Santos Escobar, is because Penta is already more over than Santos ever was. Also, he's joining an already established group in the Judgment Day that has the star power of Liv Morgan, the tag titles of Liv and Raquel Rodriguez, the OG Carlito, and the guy with potential and the guy who pushes the storyline the most in Dominic Mysterio. Unlike the LWO, which was just a freshly made group and then they just gave it to Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar and it all just capitulated because there was actually nothing to be invested in. As for the Judgment Day, this group would once again become a group that will serve the purpose of taking all these talents and elevating them into somewhere in and around the main event scene if everything were to go according to plan and they all became over. Which is again the same way that Edge did with Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest when this group originated. I do believe in this case Liv Morgan would be the leader of the Judgment Day because she has the most star power and has been at the top of her division to prove her talent and her rank. Penta would be the one holding the Intercontinental belt as he continues to grow in the business, push towards a few main events, and eventually take that step up into the main event scene. Raquel Rodriguez currently holds that women's tag belt, but I think they'll try to push her for the IC women's belt as she continues to rise in the female division. Dominic would keep evolving hopefully instead of eating pins every week he goes out there, and hopefully this allows a refresh for Carlito as well, who I think should be seen more of a threat instead of a comedy act, and at least he should be eating more pins than Dominic Mysterio. As for what this Judgment Day would look like, it would be adding yet another Latino member into the group that would then have Penta, Dominic Mysterio, Carlito, Raquel Rodriguez, and Liv Morgan as the leader. If this is what they end up going with, this is how you build a Latino faction. Instead of gathering all the Latinos you could find and label them LWO with a generic attempt to create a Latino group, brand them in Mexican and other Latino country flags, and then push them out there, hope they do the Spanglish thing, and that's that. I think the Latino wrestling scene in WWE has been very poor and very lackluster in the last decade or so. There's been no one really to represent other than Rey Mysterio, who should be retiring by now but just doesn't because there's no one else to take that mantle. We've had Andrade, who I don't know why they don't push this guy ever. We've had Sin Cara, Kalisto, other wrestlers, even Santos Escobar like I just mentioned. We've got a whole bunch of wrestlers just in and around and they don't do anything. Like those tag teams from the LWO, Legado del Fantasma and all them people there, they don't do anything. So this would really just elevate that whole scene in general. I can already imagine Dominic Mysterio glazing Penta and saying he's a better luchador than his dad Rey Mysterio, he's just a way better guy than Rey Mysterio, all of that stuff. I don't know when JD Magana returns, however when he does, I assume that they'll just kick him out of the Judgment Day because Finn Balor isn't there anymore, and what this allows them to do is Finn and JD could probably challenge those tag titles because because the Raw tag team division has been an absolute disgrace for the last year or so. So I wouldn't mind seeing those two together and just doing something with their careers, especially JD, who has never really elevated in this group. Separating him from the group would allow him to get that push under Finn Balor in a way where both of them get more screen time in general and can elevate themselves. I can imagine further down the line as well, if Raquel continues to build momentum successfully, that she will be the one to turn on Liv Morgan under the instructions of a by then more established Dominic Mysterio, starting their own Eddie Guerrero and Chyna looking relationship. By this point, Penta would hopefully be much more established to the point that he is the leader, and maybe him and Liv have disagreements over who the real leader of the group is and how the group should be operating, which further adds as to why Raquel would eventually turn on Liv Morgan. They could then add a new Latina if they wish to, or finally start the beginning of the end for that faction once everyone has hopefully reached their potential. So for me, that's how I'd book Mania in terms of the IC belt and the Judgment Day going forwards. One thing as well, if they were to do this and if it was to happen, I don't want to see these guys go heavy with the whole emo look. I think it's time to step away from that, give the Judgment Day a rebrand, at least with their attires. Having said that, I also don't want them to start branding all these guys with the Mexican flag and the generic Latino thing that I was talking about when it came to the LWO. There is another theory in which Finn Balor still gets pinned in the same scenario as I mentioned at Mania 41, the whole Dominic Mysterio betrayal, gets kicked out of the Judgment Day, but this time he loses to Bron Breakker. He pins Finn, making Bron Breakker the new member of the Judgment Day. However, the only reasons I don't think this scenario is likely is because the betrayal would be a heel move, and Bron Breakker just recently became a face as opposed to Penta, who entered the company as a face and now has the chance to turn heel. Also with Bron, he has some pretty good momentum right now as a solo act, and I don't think he would need to rely on a group in the long run compared to Penta, who has just joined the business and is still getting used to the way things work in WWE. But yeah, as always, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Who do you think will be the new member of the Judgment Day? Who will win the Intercontinental Championship at Wrestlemania 41? Make sure to check out my other WWE theory videos down below in the description. I'd appreciate if you could drop a like on the video and sub to the channel. Thank you for your time.